All right, welcome everyone. It is 7 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started. Even with the soccer game wrapping up out on the field behind us, I think we'll have some people joining us in a few minutes here. My name is Ben Bixler, and I'd like to welcome all of you to our Kennel-Charles Lecture for 2026. I am chair of the Bible department here at Eastern Mennonite School and coordinate the Kennel-Charles Lectures program. And I want to just give a quick thank you to Elmer and Marianne Kennel for their establishment of the endowment in honor of Elmer Kennel and Edith Charles, for the study of Anabaptist history, Anabaptist theology, and how Anabaptism is relevant in our lives. So if we could give a quick round of applause to Elmer and Marianne for their generosity. The endowment allows us to do things like bring in speakers. This year, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. John Garland, all the way from San Antonio. He left early this morning and has made his way the whole way here for us. John is pastor at San Antonio Mennonite Church, and he'll maybe say more about who he is. But John, if you want to come up, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. And it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be on the campus. It's an honor to meet you all and have dinner with the Kennels and hear more about their story and the story of this place. And I'm really excited to talk to the seniors tomorrow and then also to the chapel. This is a really unique thing to have something like this housed in a school, a high school and a middle school. It's very unique. It feels like an anchoring a school and a community to an Anabaptist message, an Anabaptist faith, a gravity, this anchoring, but also it's stepping into a stream of thinking. How is it that we will live out of this anchor as courageous, loving people of peace? And I was looking over the list of people who have shared um, in this lectureship series. It is a beautiful stream of thinking. And I think more than that, more than just thinking about what we believe or how we express what we believe, it's a stream of formation. How are we going to live out? How will we be a people of courageous love? How will we be a people of peaceful faith? And then, how will we be that people with our children? That's so beautiful. It's such a gift. And I feel like very unique, and I feel exceedingly honored to be a part of it. And I unfortunately did not grow up Anabaptist. I became Anabaptist as quickly as I could. I grew up as a Baptist and the son of a Bible scholar and the son of a renowned social work church scholar. And these two academic parents of mine and all of their brilliant ideas. And I moved onto a farm with a bunch of Mennonites. They'd just come back from their MCC placements in Western Africa and Southeast Asia, and they were learning agricultural techniques and eating dinner with them and listening to their stories. I was like, this is it. And as soon as I could, as graduated from college at Baylor in the middle of Texas, I looked on a map at that time. What is the poorest county in the United States of America? And it was at the very bottom tip of Texas. And I says, I'm going to move there and I'm going to be a Mennonite. And I showed up and I joined a little church. It was Menonita, and we was all in Spanish. And I learned Spanish as quickly as this little brain possibly could. And not long after that, they needed a pastor, and I had been to college. So they called me as a pastor, and they suffered through my learner's permit on Spanish for a number of years. I also taught middle school to pay the bills. And then when my girls were getting older, we moved to San Antonio, and I was called to be the pastor of the San Antonio Mennonite Church. And San Antonio, if y'all know, it's in the middle of South Texas. And about 10 years ago, when the massive flows of immigrants started moving through Central America and over the Texas border, many of those flows came to a head in San Antonio. And they came to a head in downtown San Antonio at the bus station. And our church is 4 blocks from the bus station. So when I became the pastor of the San Antonio Mennonite Church, I also found myself blocks away from a humanitarian crisis. And here I was pastoring a bunch of Mennonites who want to be courageous people of peace. And they want to be salt and light. And Mennonites are really good at hosting. And so the first thing our congregation wanted to do was host. And we began by hosting. People were stranded in downtown San Antonio as they crossed the border and ended up in the bus station. Or they had been released from the new private prisons that were springing up in the little towns outside of San Antonio. One popped up, and then another, and then another, and then another private prison where people are making tons of money every day off of our government arresting and incarcerating immigrants. And they would be released, and our church would host and host. And we first just started hosting about 10 folks a week from Honduras and from Guatemala and from El Salvador. And then we started hosting 20 a week. And then there came an influx of 100 a week. And then from there, it became a massive wave of folks. And we realized that we were a part of something huge and overwhelming and next to impossible to understand. And I think we can all identify with that sensation in 2026. It feels like the world is huge and the problems are overwhelming and they feel impossible to understand. So I want to offer 3 things tonight. One is a way of seeing, a way of looking at issues and troubles and looking at ourselves. And the other is a way of being and a way of becoming. And then I just want to remind ourselves of a prayer that we all know and love. But I want to be very, very tangible because I wish there was someone who grabbed me by the shoulders about 8 years ago and said, "Why don't you look at the world like this? Why don't you?" This would have been lovely. "Why don't you stop and pray like this?" I wish that I had had that, and I want to share that, what I wish I had heard 8 years ago tonight. But first, I want to say that I was very, very confused as a pastor. We were hosting hundreds of immigrants, mainly speaking Spanish, also speaking French, and we were very confused as to what was happening and why it was happening. And some folks in my church said, "John, why don't you take some time off and go find out what's going on?" And I said, "I would love to take some time off." And I got a ticket to Honduras. And I got a bunch of names and a few WhatsApp numbers of family members who had been left behind by folks that we were hosting that had become part of our community. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to go figure out, why were people leaving? Why were these wonderful folks leaving everything behind? And were we actually helping? That's the thing that's always kind of in the back of your mind. And sometimes it's in your tummy. Am I actually helping? Am I actually participating in something good? So I went down to San Pedro Sula and I took a bus up into the mountains and I was looking for this one little town, La Entrada de Copan. And when I got to La Entrada de Copan, I was supposed to meet some guy who was going to pick me up in his bici taxi. It's like a motorcycle with a little it's a three-wheeled motorcycle with a bench in the back. Well, his BC taxi was broken down. So he couldn't pick, but he had his motorcycle. And he said, if you just get on the back of the motorcycle with me, we'll be fine. Well, he was a little bigger than he was expecting. And I didn't quite fit on the motorcycle. I kept kind of slipping off to the side. And I said, you know what? I would be happy I can ride a motorcycle. I could ride that one right there. We could just borrow that and I'll follow you. He says, you want to ride that? It's like, yeah, I'll ride that. I can ride a motorcycle. He's like, you can ride that motito? You're going to ride that little thing? It's like, I can handle myself on a motorcycle. He's like, okay, if you want to, that's fine. And he gets on his big motorcycle dirt bike, and I get on this little, it's really a Vespa. And I'm traveling behind him, bumping along, and everywhere we go, every turn, there's a group of people, and they're coming out, and they're waving. And he stops his motorcycle, and he introduces me. I'm a pastor from los Estados Unidos. Y él va a predicar esta noche. He's going to preach this night. You guys should come. He's going to give a sermon. He's like, he's going to preach? He's like, yeah, he's going to preach. And every time we would come around, the crowd would get like a little bit bigger. And here I was on this little Vespa, and he's on his beautiful motorcycle. And he then shows me where the church is, and then takes me around the rest of the town. All of these folks are coming out to see this guy. Some of them even taking pictures of me. A couple people laughing. I don't know why they were laughing. It took me a while to figure out. It was 3 days later. Men do not ride Vespas. That was his wife's. And only women would ride a Vespa like this. And who is this man's man? So confident that he would come riding this little motito. Well, I met the whole town. He introduced me to shop owners. He introduced me to gang members. He introduced me to people who had lost family members to immigrating north. He introduced me to folks who had lived there their whole lives. And that night, he invited me to preach. The place was packed, absolutely packed. And as we walked into the church, there was a number of the gang members. The gang members there, they make their living off of extortion. So they force these young boys into the gangs, and they force them to steal or charge a tax on all of the shops. And sometimes they will kidnap people, and then they will force ransom. So you have these armies of 14, 15-year-old boys, generally armed with machetes. These are the gangs. And they were friendly enough. I thought they were going to come into the church. They stayed on the outside, and they asked me to preach. He told me, just keep it under 2 hours. And don't worry, Mr. Bixler told me that tonight we're going to keep it under 3 hours, so you guys are fine. No problem at all. And it was a robust. There was so much worship. There was so much beauty, so much excitement. And I'm sharing a story and a message and a sermon, and then there's this explosion. Like I thought there was a gunfire going off just on the other side of the wall from where I was. And it kept going and going and going, and I stopped talking. And the pastor said, just keep going. And then I didn't know what to say. He's like, turn the volume up and just keep going. And it turned out that the gang had set off a whole bunch of explosive like fireworks right next to the building. And he's like, just don't stop. Keep preaching. And when we came out, it wasn't the same teenage boys. There was a whole group of 20 of them gathered, some of the older, some of the boss folks. And we filed out of the church, and the same folks who had been friendly and excited and laughing in the presence of this cohort of folks who ran the town. Their heads were down and they're quiet and they were subdued. And I was scared. I was like, what's going to happen? But more than that, I was jarred by the shift. What is it that changes a person who can go anywhere in the town, that can talk to anyone, that can laugh with anyone? What is it that changes that man, that mama, that teenager into someone whose head is down and they're afraid? I was thinking about that. I was like, how is it? How is it? And then that same person will, a leader of their community, a pastor, a shop owner, will be pushed out of their community. They have to head north. And when they cross the border, all of a sudden, this leader of their community, this bright and salty light of their community, is now treated like a criminal. And their head is down. And they're afraid. And their picture is being taken. And an ankle monitor is being put on them. Why is that? And I'm just curious about what exactly is happening, and how do we understand that, and how do we see that? And I was reflecting with some folks in our church, and one member of our church said, I was just focused on the fear, because that's what I was experiencing, the fear. And one member of our church says, no, it's the conflict. It's the acceleration of conflict. It's like, what exactly do you mean? And this person explained to me, is like, what is happening is the massive, rapid increase of conflict. It changes us. I've been thinking about this for years, and it's specifically in the context of immigration. And I want to be very clear. If you turn on the news, you will understand immigration is a black and white issue. People are either undocumented or they're following the law. People are either bad guys who are draining our economy and destroying our world and our culture, or they are a great benefit to our society, and they are economically benefiting us. You guys know that, like, kind of black and white understanding. Some folks will even use the word illegal, which is a travesty and should never be used. Or they'll use the word legal. There is something about someone over here who is breaking the law intentionally and hurting people and breaking lives. There's something about that. Those people do exist. I've met them. They will kidnap and they'll destroy and they'll extort for money. Those people do exist. Thankfully, there's very few of them. And it's also true that there are folks who are following all of the rules and are getting all of the support and benefits from our government, or whichever government to where they've immigrated, and they are receiving resources from there are very few of those folks, but they do exist. I was thinking about what's happening here in the middle. It seems like the vast majority of folks are here in the middle. And so we were just looking at this as a church, and we looked at it kind of almost like a spectrum. It's not simple. It's not black and white, but it is a spectrum. There are people who are breaking the law intentionally, and they are on the wrong side of the law. There are people who do have resources or luck, and they are following all the laws and they are benefiting from it. But there's also, in the middle, there are folks who are on the wrong side of the law, but they're following every single law that they can. They're not benefiting from it, but certainly they are going the speed limit. They are investing in their local churches. They are investing, they're creating businesses. They're paying all their taxes. There's just no law that they can follow that would get them over this line to be on the right side of the law. There are also people who are following all the rules, and they are going to court, and they're seeking asylum, and they're paying lawyers. They're doing everything right, but they are still constantly at risk of being picked up by ICE or being rejected cold and sent either to prison or onto a deportation airplane. You guys see how there's this spectrum. Now, I would say there are not very many of folks here. There are not many folks there, but there are millions of folks in the middle. And the way I have experienced it is it's not three-dimensional. It's more like this. There's a sensation of gravity that makes it really, really hard to move up the spectrum and really, really easy to slide down the spectrum. So I taught middle school down on the South Texas border, and all of my students, all my 8th graders, we were talking about, we're going to go to college. College is great. College is the future. College is the way you got to invest in your future. And 50% of my students, I was not a very bright guy. It took me a while to catch on. 50% of my students would just shut down when I was talking about college. And finally, one of them broke it to me. They're like, sir, there's no way I'm going to go to college. You know I don't have documents. There's no way I'm going to go to college. You talk about college, sir, it means nothing to me and it means nothing to my family. I'm going to work. So many of my kids seeing that slope, seeing how hard it is to move up the spectrum, but also seeing how easy it is to just slide down. So many of my students would be enticed, even members of our church in South Texas. Hey, $6,000 in this car. All you have to do is drive past the checkpoint. It's all you have to do. And the gangs would rope these boys and sometimes the girls into these terrible schemes where they'd be trafficking drugs. Really, they would use them as bait. They would put the drugs in their car, and then they would tip off the Border Patrol. The Border Patrol would pull them over, and while that 16-year-old is being arrested, they would run by with all the other supply. I lost so many kids to the prison that way because it's so easy to slide down and really, really, really hard to move up. If you are undocumented in this country, do you know how hard it is to jump over that wall of legality? Or if you're an asylum seeker, let's say you are on the right side of the law, it's going to take years and thousands of dollars to win your asylum case and move up that spectrum. But you show up 15 minutes late to your ICE appointment, and down you slide. Do you guys see how it is a very complex spectrum, and there's gravity to it, and there's a slant? The member of my church says this is conflict. This is a measure of conflict. I was like, explain that to me. I was like, this, she said, is not a measure of them. This is not a definition of them. This is where our culture gets it wrong. Our culture will say, that person is illegal. That person is legal. That's wrong. This is a measure of the conflict that they are roped up in, that they are sucked into. Do you guys know the levels of conflict? I bet you teach this in this school. There are all these different levels of conflict. Let's see. Oh, let me go the right direction. Like level 1 is like, there's a problem solved. We're working together. This is what we all do as friends and family. Level 1 conflicts. We're really good at that. Mennonites are great at that. But you can slide into level 2 conflict where it's a disagreement and you are taking now things very personally. Oh no, that was insulting. You are insulting me. But you can go to level 3 conflict. Level 3 conflict is about winning. In fact, winning is more important than our relationship. Level 3 conflicts, it is about who comes out on top. And level 4 conflict, this is really intense. This is where there is no trust anymore. I was doing a pastoral counseling session with a family. This is devastating. They were at a level 4 conflict. The son was saying this, this, and this, and the dad didn't believe a single thing he said. And the dad said to his son, "Son, you have to know that I love you." And I paused him. I said, "Sir, I just want you to know, I believe you. He doesn't. He does not trust you. Nothing you say is trustworthy to him. Nothing he says is trustworthy to you." Level 4 conflicts are awful because there is no trust. Level 5 conflicts, this is war. This is violence. We become the problem. Level 5 conflict is like completely intractable. I now need to destroy you. You are going to destroy me. These are the conflicts. You guys see these conflicts look a lot like this. It's a spectrum. It's really easy to slide down the spectrum. It's really, really hard to move up the spectrum. All of y'all, because you're good Anabaptists, you're pretty good at moving from level 2 to level 1. You've had training. You use I statements, and you do active listening skills. You probably, here at this school, you probably could get from a level 3 conflict up to a level 2 conflict. Not many schools in this country are teaching reconciliation skills, but that's what it takes. It is not easy to move up from a level 3 conflict where it is about winning. Winning is more important than the relationship, to a level 2 conflict. But I tell you what, when you fall over the edge into a level 4 conflict, I've got that little ladder there, you must have external, specialized help, expert help. This just describes the immigration spectrum. It's the levels of conflict. The conflict is the conflict the government has with you. The government has me, let's say I am someone with a green card. I have permissions to work. The government is working with me. We have a problem to solve. We're solving it together. An asylum seeker, however, is a level 3 conflict. It's about winning. The government pays a prosecutor to prove them wrong in court. And if they lose, they are deported. It is about winning, and winning is more important than the relationship. If you do not have documents in this country, you are at a level 4 conflict with this country, with this government. The government does not trust you at all, and you know what you cannot do? You can't trust the government. You cannot trust them at all. You're at a level 4 conflict. And if you are actively in one of the cartels or one of the gangs, this is level 5 conflict. It is an existential conflict. Do you see how hard it is to move up and how easy it is to slide down? These levels of conflict. Do you know what this also describes? So much. As a pastor, I think about this spectrum every day, all the time. This doesn't just describe immigration. This describes mental health. Conflict with the world. My mind's balance in conflict with the world. Sometimes we're at level 1 conflict, sometimes we're at level 2. But I tell you what, it is really easy to slide down and for our mental health to degrade. And when there is a break, when we slide from level 3 conflict to level 4, we are breaking relationships. We are breaking our mooring with the world and our culture and our support systems and our family. It is so hard. Without concerted effort and external expertise to remake those relationships. I do a lot of marriage counseling. I use the spectrum. Y'all, you know how hard it is to just carve out a date night every week. How hard it is to work on your marriage. It's really hard to move up that spectrum. And you know what is really, really easy to do? It's really easy to let it slide. And once you've let it slide enough to break trust, it is really hard to move up that spectrum. What about poverty, housing? Has anyone bought a house here? Nowadays, it's so hard to buy a house. It is really hard to buy a house, and it's really easy to lose a house. And once you've lost a house, actually, where I live in Texas, it's illegal to be homeless. It's against the law to not have a house. Once you slide over that, you've lost your credit. You've lost all sense of anchoring and place and belonging. It is so hard to move up the spectrum and so easy to move down the spectrum. Do you see how this spectrum is really, really helpful? All of us are experiencing this. Every one of us is experiencing this gravitational pull of conflict on us times 5, 6, even 7. If you're in a meaningful relationship, if you have a functional brain, if you are aging, if you are taking care of other folks, if you are trying to hold down a job and a house, if you are an immigrant, all of us are dealing with pulls in all sorts of directions. We are all on this spectrum. And so the question is, where is the church? What do we do as a church if this is our reality? Not just the reality of the people that we serve, but the reality of us. Not just the reality of the people in the pews, but the reality of the pastors. Not just the reality of the students, but the reality of the teacher. All of us are being pulled down in this conflict spectrum, and it's really, really hard to move up. This is what I spend a lot of time thinking about. How can we help an immigrant family who is suffering this gravitational pull, and also the mental health pull, and also their marriage, and also their financial well-being? What do we do? There is a really, really powerful, another really powerful lens out there that I want to share. This is an image from Scripture you probably recognize. I think I turned this off. Oh, there it is. The stone, the rock in the middle of a swirling ocean. It feels like we are in a swirling ocean. You just need to get to a rock. If you are sliding down a slope, what is it you need? You need a handhold. You need a foot purchase. The Psalms describes it as, you have given a wide space for my feet. That's Psalm 118. You have given me a place on which I can land. I am being pulled down. Everyone around me is being pulled down. You have given me something on which I can plant my feet. You have the image of drowning and being sucked down. And then suddenly we're able to hold on. We're able to put our feet on something. So what does this look like? An anchored, safe harbor. Well, there is also a spectrum here. And this is what I've done. All of my research is, academic research is on the Psalms and attachment theory. And attachment theory likes to focus on security. How is it that we can be an anchored, safe harbor? But the reality is, most of us are not anchored and not safe. We're on either side of the boulder. And when we spend time with folks who are being yanked down by the gravity of conflict, they will end up on either one of these sides. Either they're avoiding their emotions, they're avoiding relationships, they're building walls. I can't deal with this, I can't deal with you. Or they're like, you know what, I'm just gonna take care of all of these other people's problems. There's some fancy terms for this in attachment theory. Some guy comes up to Jesus. He's like, how am I supposed to do this? Like, how is it? Could you just tell me how to get to heaven? You remember this story. It's like, how do I get to heaven, Jesus? Basically, how can I know that I am safe and know that I am secure? And Jesus says, well, you know the commandments. You got to love God and love your neighbor. And he's like, yeah, but who's my neighbor? And then we have this lovely story. Jesus says, you love God and you love your neighbor. So then we have the wonderful story about the Good Samaritan. And we love this story, especially as Mennonites. We love the Good Samaritan story because all Mennonites are Good Samaritans. We know that. But you know the key characters in that story, some folks who should know better. You know the Levite. You know the religious leader by how they go to the other side of the road. They avoid. They see a need and they avoid. You have the image of avoiding and building a wall, and I am just going to stay out here in the waters. I'm not going to be secure. I'm not going to be safety for them. I'm just going to avoid. A lot of us are really good at that. I'm going to build a wall. I'm not going to talk about my emotions. I'm not going to deal with your emotions. I'm going to avoid. We see it in the Levite. We see it in the religious leader, avoiding. Well, the anchored safe harbor is the Good Samaritan. That's just part of the story, though. How do I get to heaven? Love your neighbor and love God. Jesus just answers the first part of the question, how you love your neighbor. Luke sets it up so that immediately after the Good Samaritan story, all of Jesus's buddies show up in Mary and Martha's house. They all crash Mary and Martha's house, and Mary, wonderful Mary, is tending to Jesus at his feet, listening, open, connecting, being fed in the presence of the Savior. And Martha is taking care of everyone's needs, getting pretty bitter about it. She's a good Mennonite. She's in the kitchen. She's taking care of, she has no boundaries. All these guys are in, she's cooking for all of them, and she's working. Mary's not helping at all, and she feels resentful. You have Martha over here who has these weak boundaries. She believes, according to attachment theory, they think that if you can just take care of other people's needs, you'll have a debt, and then they will take care of you. That's what our brain begins. That's what our bodies think that this is true. So we'll get caught up in this. A lot of folks in this room who do this. I'm just going to take care of everyone else, and then they better take care of me. We keep a tally in our head of all the good things that we've done, hoping that that will lead to us now being taken care of. So here's now Mary is over here. She's the anchored safe harbor in the presence of the Savior. Luke sets this up for us. Look, there's a few ways to live in a world that is violent and overwhelming and impossible to understand. You could avoid. You could, what's called, get anxious entangled and take care of everyone else's needs. Or you could be a anchored safe harbor. If you want to get real fancy, this is what it looks like. This is the way I describe it. We're not going to get into this. This is attachment theory. There's all sorts of places on this spectrum. Needless to say, Martha is over here, and you have that Levite who is over here, and you would probably place Mary and the Good Samaritan up at the very top. This is a measure of relying on other people to meet your needs, and up on the y-axis is experience of belonging and emotional regulation. We all want to be in the middle. We all want to be at the top. We want to be safe, secure anchors. That's what we want. And the question is how? How do we do that? Everyone around us is being pulled down the slope. every one of us is being pulled down the slope. How is it that we can be anchored, safe harbors? Well, if you want to look at these fancy, beautiful thinkers in attachment theory, Diana Poole Heller writes marvelously about the skills of secure attachment. These are the things that someone with secure attachment does. If you want to have secure attachment, do these things. Or you have Pete Scazzaro. He was a pastor in Queens, New York, and he wrote this marvelous book about the emotionally healthy church and the emotionally healthy spirituality. He talks about all these things. What I've done is I've summarized all of their teachings, and it's actually pretty simple. It looks like this. Regulate your emotions. Soothe your emotions. Ask for what you really need. And then don't mess around with all these fake contracts and debts. Just participate in real love. If you want to read, I spent a lot of time working on my doctorate reading attachment theory, you can just summarize all attachment theory into these 3 steps. You need to regulate your emotions, and the only way to regulate your emotions is to borrow peace. And you need to ask for your real needs. First, you need to know what your real needs are, and then you need to advocate for those real needs. And then don't mess around with the garbage. Don't mess around with indebtedness. Just participate in unconditioned, no condition love. It looks like this. Borrow peace. Borrow peace, hone your life, edit, and live by real love. So when we hear this story of the Good Samaritan, what does the Levite really need to do? Well, he was really scared. He needed to borrow peace. He needed to hone his life and edit. He needed to live by real love, as opposed to some debt he was paying at the temple or the synagogue where he was going to lead worship. What in the world was Martha supposed to do? She was so mad. Everyone knew she was mad. She told them she needed to borrow some peace. She needed to ask for her real needs. She didn't need Mary to help her. She had another very clear need, and she needed to not be living by the fake contracts. She needed real love. We all need real love so that we can give real love, not debt. Do you guys recognize this pattern? It's around and around and around and around. So Luke tells the story of the guy asking how to get to heaven, and Jesus tells the Good Samaritan story. They show up in Mary and Martha's house, and the disciples are like, oh, this is frustrating. We don't even know how to pray. This is immediately after the Mary and Martha house. Luke chapter 11 begins by the disciples demanding for better biblical prayer education. And Jesus says, oh, this is how you do it. Let me explain. It's simple. All you have to do is call on your Father. Here. Come here. Your power, your kingdom, come here. You guys see that? It looks like that. You come here to where we are in this overwhelming world where I do not feel any sort of peace. I don't understand it. Your will here. Your presence here. We need to borrow your peace. And you guys know the next part of the prayer. Give it to us. No please. No bargaining. No, hey, we've earned this now. Could we have our daily bread? Give us what we really need. Give it to us now. And then the next part, I don't want to participate in the fake stuff. I don't want to worry about the debts. I don't want to worry. Just release us from the sins. Release us from this indebtedness as we release others. And this is how we participate in real love. This is how we participate in unconditioned love. And then we come back around the circle and be like, well, actually, I'm really tempted and I'm really, really scared. So rescue us. Bring us along. We need to, the fancy word for this in attachment theory is regulate with you, be in your presence so that our heartbeat syncs with your heartbeat and our breathing syncs with your breathing, and we are looking at what you are looking at. This is what we do when we hold a child. We soothe them, and they can borrow our peace. You see how Jesus taught this prayer? It's an answer to the question, how in the world are we supposed to feel secure? In a world where all of us are being pulled down the slope, in a world where all of us are terrified, and it seems like more and more are slipping, how are we supposed to be secure? A modern day attachment theorist will say, well, these are the skills that you need to have. Or Jesus would put it like this in Luke 11. Let me explain it to you, he says. It's the middle of the night, and a friend comes to you. The friend is exhausted. They've been on a long journey. Maybe they are an immigrant. Maybe they're out of prison. This friend comes to you in the middle of the night, and they're asking you for bread. And you go into the midnight pantry, and your midnight pantry, you remember this passage in Luke 11, your midnight pantry is empty. And so you go across the street, and you pound on the door of your good friend. And your good friend is going to respond to you. This is how Jesus explains prayer. There is so much need in the world. There's so much darkness. There's so much gravity. And you do not have what it takes. And that's okay. Because there is a reality big enough to hold our pain, hold our healing, and hold the steps that are to come. There is a kingdom that is big enough to hold our pain, hold the healing, and provide for the steps that are. This is how Jesus explains prayer. Isn't it beautiful? There's these two ways that I would offer of seeing. There's this spectrum. There's this conflict spectrum. We are all being pulled by it down. Everyone around us is being pulled as well. But there's also the spectrum of moving up to secure, anchored attachment to God. And then we have this wonderful way of doing it. All we need to do is co-regulate with God. Say, God, come here, hold me, pick me up. Ask God for what we really need, and then participate in unconditional love. I don't want any contracts. I don't want to hold anything over anyone, and I will live in the power of this release. But I love the image. It's midnight. You don't have what it takes. That's okay. Just go knock on the door. I'm dying to find out how the soccer game ended. Let's give them a big round of applause, though. I mean, that's thrilling. Yeah. In the final seconds, they scored an equalizing goal to push it to overtime. And then in overtime, it sounds like they scored it against you again. I'm sorry. Yeah. But I'm glad that you are here. That's fair. We have some time for questions. We have some time for pushback. We have time for clarification. I have, according to my watch, is that right, Mr. Bixler? Okay. If you have some questions about anything that I've said, if you want to ask about San Antonio, if you want to talk about the Spurs, if you want to talk about attachment theory, or if you're interested in questions about immigration or church leadership or anything else, let me know. It's an honor to be able to spend time with you all.
I do really want to hear what happened when you went back from Honduras back to church in San Antonio.
It was that's a really, really good question. So what happened? What shifted? It was a dramatic shift. It helped to be able to process that with the church. But what was very, very clear was we were on far ends of the attachment spectrum. We were trying to be the Savior and not trying to sit at the feet of the Savior. So we were trying to be the Marthas and not be the Mary. And in some cases, we were avoiding massive problems. And the other thing that we were doing was we were, just to stay with the way Jesus described prayers, we were just staring at our empty pantry that he describes in Luke chapter 11. We were just staring at it and not going across the street and begging for more. So we restructured and we said, let's stop pretending to be the Savior. Let's stop pretending to have all the answers, and let's just be the church. Let's be the body. There's this wonderful, wonderful detail in Mark chapter 6 when it's the first feeding story in Mark. There's two in Mark. And in Mark chapter 6, he breaks the bread and multiplies, feeds 5,000. What's wonderful about this is he tells the disciples, go and see what you have. And they go and they see, oh, we've got the fish and we have the loaves. And what we were doing was we saw what we have and we were immediately giving it away. And the brilliant, Mark is just a genius with words. There's this one micro verse in Mark 6. It says, they went and they saw what they had and they brought it back to Jesus and they handed it over to Jesus. Jesus blesses it and breaks it. And then he tells them to go serve. So, and I know that's like, it's like kind of minutia thing, but we were doing that as a church. We're like, this is what we have. There's so much need. We've got to use it. I'm going to get practical in a second. As opposed to saying, let us just release this into the hands of Jesus. Let Jesus do the multiplication, and then we participate in the multiplication. So one example of that is our hospitality house. We had a volunteer from our church who was necessary to be leading the hospitality house every single night. And we were, goodness sakes, burning through volunteers like crazy. My wife finally was like, dear, I think we should be married for the next 20 years. Your daughters haven't seen you. And we were burning through our volunteers. We were there. This is what we have. Let's offer it. And then it was just a very simple shift. We have mamas. We have leaders of their community who are coming into our hospitality. We just need to empower them. It was just that very, very simple shift of empowering our guests to be leaders, to become house mothers. And then all of a sudden, everything got light and beautiful and started multiplying. Another example just from this last year, we were running this like really great food pantry because it was really hard for folks to go shopping when they're losing their jobs and they're afraid of getting picked up by ICE. So we were running this robust food pantry, and it was burning us dry. We were running out of money, and one person hurt her back getting all the donations of food, and there was all these issues. We were having, committee meetings about the conflicts we were having with our food pantry, and it was just a very simple shift. And that simple shift became a church plant. Our food pantry became a church plant. We're not running a food pantry anymore now that was feeding like 25 folks a week. Now it is a church plant, and 60 people are gathering every Sunday afternoon to sing and worship and cook together. It's like a really interesting shift of, I am doing this, thank you, Martha. I am serving, and hurting my back and feeling a little bit of anxiety because this person isn't helping enough, to let us empower this person who really, she's called to be a pastor. And she knows about feeding and gathering and having big meals and sending people home with the leftovers. That's yeah. There's more examples of that, but I think it's the shift. I think in the simplest form is we are not the Savior. We are sitting at the feet of the Savior of the world. Yeah, it's a great question. Any other thoughts or pushback or like that didn't quite make sense or clarifications? Maybe you're offended that I used the word y'all. I said that earlier today. It's like, where are you from? I was like, what? Where are you from? I was like, Texas. Y'all say y'all here, right? Okay. I was stunned by that. I'm sorry. I won't say it.
Thank you very much. I'm just wondering if you can help me think through something here. I think in one of the slides, for example, you had the law as kind of that barrier in between, the left and the right, for example, right? And then the following slide, there was this this drastic slide down, right? The metaphors or the images that are being used, right? Law, the other one. No, it was the law or the rock. These are kind of static, or oftentimes they're understood as static entities. But I think that one of the things that's becoming more and more apparent is how those are very dynamic elements as well. The law that we think we just need to jump continuously moves and shifts, right? The anchor that we think that we're trying to grab onto proves not to be actually an anchor. It's not a static thing that we are grabbing onto, or perhaps we think that the wrong thing is an anchor. I'm just wondering if you can kind of
This
help me
point
think
is
through that.
fantastic. It is such a good. Tell me your name again. Andrew. Andrew has just a magnificent point. This is, obviously I don't know how to do videos, but if you're to do a video, the law would be moving all over the place like a laser pointer entertaining a cat. It's all over the place. I have good friends who are immigration attorneys. They cannot follow it. There's some members of our church who are former immigration judges. They cannot follow. The law is constantly changing. That's an important thing to understand. And that's not just with immigration. That's with all of the other conflict spectrums that we are dealing with. There is this drop-off point, and it can move. Now, the rock that we're talking about, that is stable if it's real. But there are certainly, I don't know if you've ever done climbing the mountains, but you can climb a mountain and think that you're getting to a peak. And when you get to the top of that, you realize it's a false summit. There's actually, oh no, the peak is so much further on. That was just the highest ridge. There's this thing called codependency, where people will feel like they are secure with someone, and that other person feels like but it's actually it's a completely false rock. Or sometimes addiction will swirl us into this belief that we have found the thing that will numb our pain, and that numbing replaces the real security. So we are called to, as people who are following Jesus, constantly pointing out, okay, that is the stone that was rejected. That is the chief cornerstone. It is rejected by all of these other systems. This is the stone. Y'all's law is all over the place, and it's ridiculous. You cannot trust it. You can trust this chief's cornerstone. And in Psalm 118, everything is going to be built off of this cornerstone that was rejected. And then it ends with the hallelujahs. Yeah. But that's just a fantastic point. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Other thoughts or clarifications, or that's a good point to bring up.
Thank you very much, John. That was excellent. I appreciated what you had to say. My question is back near the beginning where you had the horizontal line. You're working through the definitions across the line. Yeah, keep going back first.
There we
right
go.
There.
Gotcha.
And my question was, you said at one point, I've been trying to figure out through the talk, you said, oh, we shouldn't call people illegal.
Yeah.
explain to me in clear terms why you said that.
Well, simply because of this notion that what is the law? It moves all over the place, and whose law are we talking about? So to say someone is outside of the law, it makes a whole bunch of presuppositions. In fact, a lot of the early letters that Paul wrote, where it's talking about what is legal here. Is this person outside of the law or inside of the law? And Paul is pushing back vehemently. I don't know if you read the book of Galatians lately, but man, Paul is furious about this talk, livid about this talk, about whether something is in the law or outside the law. So you have Paul in Galatians is using some really powerful language, angry language, but also beauty. He's describing the fruit of the Spirit. And he's describing, saying, there is no man nor woman, nor Jew nor Greek in the Spirit. And it's this image that if you're talking about the law, we need to be clear that we're talking about the speech of God. So there is shorthand in our country where someone will say, those illegals. And that is a shorthand for they are here without documents. But the implication is that defines them. And we as followers of Jesus know that they are defined by the image of God. They are defined by God's call over them, their vocation, not by some fickle, constantly changing statute that can be shifted by the scrawl of a Sharpie, on the Resolute desk. So that's why. And also, I've heard dear friends of mine, brothers and sisters, who have been called illegal, and it's so deeply hurtful. But it's there. It's a word. We have a lot of words, a lot of language like that in our culture. It is quietly dehumanizing, but also powerfully, as in the same ways that erosion can undergird the foundation of a community. But yeah, it's a good question. Did that get to what you were asking? Yeah. That's why I wrote out of the law as opposed to the word. I was going to tell the kids tomorrow. One time I was challenged to a debate between. I'm going to tell we'll talk to the seniors about this tomorrow. I was challenged to a debate by a megachurch pastor. A megachurch pastor wanted to. My megachurch is like 150 people. This guy's megachurch is like gargantuan. He wanted to debate me about whether illegals could follow Jesus. Let's define terms first. Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you've done tonight. When my family first came here, we were here on student visas.
Mhm.
And then our country broke out in a revolution and we became refugees.
Wow.
So instantly we were deemed illegal
Mhm.
in a sense at that point. And how you're talking about the law shifting or
Mhm.
the understanding of the right path, it was super hard for my family. We lived under years of my father being at risk for deportation,
Mhm.
even though we did everything according to the law.
Right.
And I don't even know how much money my parents had to spend, which we probably didn't have really. So I just appreciate it. I also see how the word illegal is also a very racial term.
Mhm.
As I lived it, I see it in today's society. Some people are called illegal, some people are called immigrant. They could be here on the same status, but depending on what they look like, what their economic level is, it can make a difference. So we have to be very careful because people are trying, but the pathway to get there is super complex. I appreciate what you had to say.
Yeah. Tell me your name real fast.
Debbie.
Debbie. Debbie makes just a fantastic point. And and heartfelt, powerful. She's talking about her family. This is not a concept. This is my daddy. This is my mommy. This is my family. This is me. And also this very clear point, and I think it should just be said very clearly. When we talk about immigration in this country, we are talking about racism. That is what the conversation is about. It's not about economics. It's not about genetics. It's about racism. And I think we just need to be very clear about that. If we're going to be honest, if we're going to get anywhere, to understand that that's what we're talking about. Any other questions? The girls' soccer team wants to make comments about. Who scored the goal? Who was it? An 8th grader scored the goal? Oh, wow. And this is against one of the huge public schools, right? Wow. Oh, wow. Okay. A sophomore and an 8th grader. You guys have a bright future. Yeah, that's great. That's exciting. Has anyone here scored a goal in soccer in your life? Seriously. You see how rare this is? Okay, no, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it's a very rare thing. That's great. That's exciting. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's give John a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was wonderful to hear you share stories and hear you share this framework for us. We look forward to hearing you in chapel tomorrow and speaking with our seniors. Thank you all for attending. Feel free to stick around, have some small conversations. John will be available up here in person. Any final words, John?
Yeah, I do. The Kennel family, wow. I like it, honoring your dad, honoring your family, but to do it in this way is it's just really, really useful. So you all know the kennels are right here in the red and blue right here in the fact. So you need to definitely thank them and ask them about their the history of Father. Let's close with a word of prayer. We'll go out into this beautiful, oh my gosh, the Shenandoah Valley. Wow. I was worried about the world this morning. I was reading the news, and then I flew into the Shenandoah Valley in springtime. And you're like, it's going to be okay. This is beautiful. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may God's face shine on you and give you peace. May God's face be lifted up over you and give you grace. May God give you grace not to sell yourself short. Even though you are being pulled down, there is a foothold, and there is a handhold. There is a wide place. And may God give you grace to risk something that is big in this world for something that is good in the kingdom. And may God give you grace to see with the eyes of your heart. We live in a world that is much too small for anything but the truth and much too dangerous for anything but love. So God, we ask you, take our hands and work through them. And take our lips and speak through them powerfully, beautifully, lovingly through them. And take our minds and think through them and create through them. And God, take our hearts made one and set them on fire. In the name of Christ. Thank you all. Lovely. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for sacrificing daddy time.